Mankind first walked on the moon more than half a century ago, with the last of the Apollo missions dating back to 1972. Since then, further lunar explorations have been held back due to costly expenditures. But now, humanity is yet again set on sending boots back on the moon, with new economic and scientific incentives fueling this new lunar program of the 21st century. As NASA's Artemis 1 Orion spacecraft has successfully entered its orbit around the moon, the excitement for new discoveries are abound. So keep watching until the end of this video as we take a look into NASA's Artemis 1 mission latest update and be amazed at the discoveries that lie ahead. Welcome back to Space Infinity. Back to the moon. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first two human beings to ever walk on the surface of the moon, providing history with the words, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." This victorious lap on the dry, barren and grey surface of the moon was indeed a historic moment, where mankind finally proved that we have the capability of departing Earth's confines to open the possibility of establishing civilizations beyond our gentle planet. This was also a momentous occurrence which provided a shift in global power. See, back in the 1950s, there was a heated space race between the United States of America and the former Soviet Union, with both superpowers locked in a race for dominance in space. While this competition grew out of the existing Cold War, it also pushed humanity to feats of incredible discovery. Both countries were scurrying to be the first to put a manned spacecraft into orbit, and to be the first to reach the moon. This age brought on considerable development in the realms of science, technology, and economy, with the US effectively winning the race with the Apollo 11 moon landing. Since then, there have been numerous missions to the moon, with 9 Apollo missions, with 24 astronauts landing on the moon, with a lucky bunch of 12 who had the opportunity to walk on it. However, by 1970, the Apollo missions were cancelled, with Apollo 17 becoming the last manned mission that was aimed at the moon. The main reason for the cancellation of the Apollo missions was due to lack of funding, with costs of getting to the moon becoming, quite ironically, too astronomical. This led to decades of decline with regards to the overall space program, until in the last few years, when a new space race of this new age would invigorate the public once again towards the mysteries of outer space. This new space race, led by private agencies such as SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic, who have pushed the current ceiling over what humans are capable of in terms of creating modern spacecrafts that can bring people beyond Earth's gravity and atmosphere, with these companies setting sights on expanding our spacefaring capabilities, with a grand target of reaching and colonizing Mars. Despite setbacks and delay, NASA is now back with its own program set on sending astronauts to the moon once again, with plans of establishing a lunar gateway into the vaster reaches of space. The Artemis missions. Named after the mythical Greek goddess of the moon, Artemis is the spaceflight program led by NASA, alongside multiple international and US domestic partners. Its primary aim is to send humans back to the moon, particularly the lunar South Pole, by 2025. The program is aptly named, since Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo, which was the title given to the NASA lunar missions which first launched humans to the moon more than 50 years ago. Launched at the end of 2017, Artemis is an effort to revitalize the US space program, with Artemis 1 being the unmanned test flight that has recently been initiated to start the mission plan towards the moon. Powering this venture to jet to the moon is NASA's Space Launch System, or the SLS Super Heavy Lift Launch Vehicle, while utilizing the Orion Multi-Purpose Crew Vehicle for the first time. These New Age lunar missions have clear and set goals, with NASA already starting several short-term ones, such as landing the first woman and the first person of color on the moon, with mid-term objectives being to establish a sustainable human presence on the moon with an international expedition team, leading to the longer-term objectives for Artemis, which is to lay the foundation for the extraction of lunar resources and establishing an outpost on the moon. This goal will make the moon a gateway for other crewed missions, such as Mars and the farther reaches of outer space. The Artemis program was initiated as a collaborative effort, made possible through the Artemis Accords, signed in 2020 with NASA and US commercial spaceflight contractors in a supervisory role, in partnership with the European Space Agency and space agencies of several other nations. As planned, the first phase of the Artemis program, which has already got underway, aims to provide valuable data by extensively testing the capabilities of the Space Launch System and the Orion module. NASA's Artemis 1 moon mission is the agency's first big step towards returning to the moon, with the SLS mega rocket launching the uncrewed Orion spacecraft for an approximated 25-day mission, during which it will orbit the moon before returning back to Earth. While Artemis 1 did successfully launch from Launch Complex 39B at the Kennedy Space Center on November 16, 2022, the mission did incur delays, with 4 cancelled launch attempts due to engine issues and tropical storms. Latest updates. After its successful launch, the Orion spacecraft and the ICPS, or Interim Cryogenic Propulsion Stage, were placed into a nominal orbit after separating from the SLS mega rocket, achieving orbit at approximately 8 minutes after launch. 89 minutes after liftoff, the ICPS fired for 18 minutes before Orion separated from the expended stage, while firing its auxiliary thrusters to begin its journey to the moon. On November 20, 2022, its 5th day of flight, the Orion spacecraft entered the lunar sphere of influence, where the moon's gravitational force became significantly stronger than that of Earth's relative to the spacecraft. By November 25th, the Orion spacecraft completed an 88-second engine burn that inserted the capsule into lunar orbit, and was even able to capture a photo of the very moment this occurred. This led to a successful insertion of the spacecraft into a distant retrograde orbit around the moon. Shortly before the burn, Orion had been traveling more than 57,000 miles above the lunar surface, marking the furthest distance it will reach from the moon during the mission. Now that the Orion spacecraft is comfortably in orbit around the moon, flight controllers will be monitoring key systems and perform checkouts while in the environment of deep space, initiating the objectives of this first phase of Artemis. Throughout its mission, the Orion spacecraft will also set new records when it travels 40,000 miles beyond the moon at its most distant point, allowing the capsule to get farther from Earth than any previously human-rated spacecraft. Orion is set to orbit the moon for little less than a week, leaving its lunar orbit with an engine burn by the 1st of December as it starts heading home to Earth. Orion is then expected to arrive on December 11th with a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean off the Californian coast. Data collected during this mission will be the basis for initiating the next phases of the Artemis program. Artemis 2 is targeted to be the first crewed test flight of the SLS mega rocket and the Orion spacecraft. That's already set for 2024. This mission will bring along 4 crew members, with this mission aimed at taking humans farther than ever before, as they plan to complete a lunar flyby of almost 9,000 kilometers, or 5,592 miles beyond the moon itself, before returning back to Earth. The third mission to the moon, Artemis 3, is set to be the first lunar landing mission since Apollo 17, which happened in 1972. 4 astronauts aboard the Orion spacecraft will dock with the Lunar Gateway and remain in lunar orbit for 30 days. The Lunar Gateway is a planned, small-scale space station set to orbit the moon that's intended to serve as a solar-powered communication hub, science laboratory, and habitation module for astronauts, while also being a holding area for valuable equipment. Once docked at the Lunar Gateway, 2 astronauts from Artemis 3 will then use the Human Landing System, or HLS, down to the moon's south pole, a region that has never been visited by humans. Those 2 astronauts will then spend 7 days on the lunar surface to perform a variety of scientific studies, such as sampling water ice on the moon, which were first detected in 1971. After their week-long stay on the moon, the astronauts will then ascend back using the HLS to rendezvous with Orion, which would then bring the crew back to Earth. While NASA is currently focused on these 3 phases, the success of these missions will lead to further crewed missions that will occur on an annual basis. Artemis 4, 5, and so forth will then lead to the establishment of a lunar base on the surface of the moon, while also reinforcing the Lunar Gateway satellite as a staging point for future missions, as well as providing more support for the journey to Mars. So what do you think about this NASA Artemis 1 mission latest update? Let us know in the comments below. Space Infinity will continue to deliver the latest news on the vast oceans of space and all its new discoveries. So tap that like button and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.